Hello, and welcome to Literary Reality, where we discuss novels and their real-life effects. Today, we'll be discussing William Golding's The Lord of the Flies. And joining us today is infamous podcaster Andrew Meridew, known for his... So, welcome, Mr. Meridew.
Glad to be here, glad to be here. Now tell me, what about the book will we be talking about?
Well, we'll be discussing the novel, its themes, comparing it to a similar incident that happened in real life, and its impacts on literature.
Well, for one, Golding's pretty much right about everything he said in that novel.
Well, that's an opinion. Why do you think that?
Well, Golding's time in the military is the root of his knowledge. It bleeds into the novel at all turns. Let me read a page from it real quick. Now Jack was yelling too, and Ralph could no longer make himself heard. Jack had backed right against the tribe, now cutting forward a little. Ralph stood facing them, a little to one side, his spear ready. This is a great example of what Golding saw, how disorder formed naturally in their groups. It's a part of nature and...
You just used the book to justify the book.
And to provide my corpse with the lead like
Even in the book, we see kindness through Simon. Although he dies, he's a symbol of the good in humanity. This is metaphorically shown when he finds the grove on page 57, at least in the 2016 version of the novel, that is.
Well, I was saying...
Let's continue. Now, in recent years, the story of the real-life Lord of the Flies has re-entered the mainstream. You're familiar with it, right, Andrew?
Yeah, a group of like 6 boys got stuck on an island for 15 months.
Yes, and tell me, how did they do on the island? In comparison to the novel, I mean.
Well, I guess they did kind of put a little society together.
Yeah, they did really well, actually. In fact, here's an excerpt from an article I read a while back. The teenage runaways showed remarkable resourcefulness, building a hut out of palm folds, establishing a garden with bananas and beans. They lived in harmony, they told us, most of the time. That was, Holly Williams' article, I believe.
Well, still, it's entirely possible that it wouldn't go that well every time.
Actually, the article mentions and kind of agrees with you on that part, Andrew.
It does? But was I actually right about something?
Hold your horses. I said partially. Rupert Berman, one of the kids who was stuck on the island, was actually asked a similar question. And he was asked, you're saying the basic idea underlying the novel Lord of the Flies is wrong. You're saying that would never happen. And Mr. Bregman replied, well, if tens of millions of children around the globe still have to read Lord of the Flies in school today, I think they also deserve to know about the one time in all the world's history when real kids shipwrecked on a real island, because that's a very different story.
Well, yeah, he didn't deny that something like that could happen.
No, he didn't, but still, the only story that has ever reflected the Lord of the Flies that happened in reality, nothing like the book.
But what's the point? What does this prove about what I said, or disprove, or whatever?
So, saying that the novel is entirely right, and that's what had happened, is a tad bit unrealistic, Andrew.
Why, you son of...
Whoa, put the conch down,
No, I am sick and tired of this. I deserve respect and not to be yelled at every 5 seconds.
Yelling, put the conch down!
I won't be silenced by the lizard people.
Okay. He's gone. Good. Where were we? Oh, right. Impact. The impact of the novel Lord of the Flies on literature is, without a doubt, evident. On the cover of the novel, we see its reviews by Suzanne Collins and Stephen King, as they both talk about how it later inspired their works. And the characters, they're based on Golding's experience teaching children, primarily young boys. We can speculate that this led him to combine his experience teaching children and his experience in the war and exposure to human evil to write a novel about the exposure of children to human evil. I think what exemplifies this is one of the final lines of the novel. Ralph wept for the end of innocence, the darkness of man's heart. This leads me to believe that Golding saw the darkness of man's heart, as he put it, grow as the innocence died, and he wanted to project that through his story. I think that's where the first major character to die is Simon, the one who's the most innocent, the one who's the least infected by evil. Simon is less of a character and more of a metaphor, a symbol. Piggy's death is meant to represent the end of rationality. That's why from that point forward, the boys hunting Ralph are no longer referred to as boys, or as hunters, or as Jack's men, but as savages. Now, Golding's usage of the term savage is debatably, or more accurately, completely offensive in modern terms. The usage of the term savage was most likely connected to the time that Lord of the Flies was written, although it could connect to some of Golding's beliefs. But still, the story of Lord of the Flies is very clearly metaphorical. The characters, locations, and debatably entities, well, being characters in their own right, represent pieces of what Golding believes makes people human. And that's extremely beneficial in a story like Lord of the Flies. But how does the story itself project this? How does it project it through its characters? Well, that can be explained. The story is gripping, allowing you to attach yourself to characters quickly. The Afterwards by Lois Lowry actually depict this really well. If you're new to this book, as I was then, you will meet Ralph right up front. I felt a kinship with Ralph right away, even before I knew his name. This helps the story immensely, as it keeps going, and as we see the characters devolve into the beast that, at one point, they feared, we get a grasp on William's belief about people, that evil is in our nature. Even though I don't agree with Golding's beliefs about people, it's just so well written. I think these beliefs are very common in literature. The afterwords of the 2016 release of Lord of the Flies actually bring this up, comparing it to the modern apocalyptic dystopian novel. She says, today's young readers inundate, as they have been recently, by violent apocalyptic books, probably cannot imagine the effect William Golding's novel had on the innocent and impressionable girl that I was then. But Golding's novel isn't entirely accurate. First of all, it's worth saying, his book isn't what he believed would happen if a bunch of boys got stuck on a deserted island. It's a fictional story based on his experiences that led him to believe that without some structure, people were capable of great evil. And, while not entirely incorrect, he never intended for his story to be seen as this cautionary tale of what would happen if children were left to their own devices. He also couldn't have predicted that children would one day get marooned on an island and proceed to do the exact opposite of what he believed would happen. What he believed would happen. Golding believed that without structure, people would inevitably fall to the evil that existed without them. And that's not entirely correct. It's been seen in history that without some authority, people can use it as a way to get away with things they normally couldn't. But it's also been seen in history that when people are put in a situation where they can only survive if they work together, they do. The island is a microcosm of Golding's worldview, but we can't rely on one view of the world. In the words of Chinamana Adichie, that when we reject the single story, we realize that there was never a single story about any place. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.